Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Pilgrim's Passport. Pastor Charlie Rizzo. And I want to do a little study today from the book of Job. Now, in my many years as a pastor, I think I did a complete series twice going through the book of Job. It was late 70s, and then I think it was early 90s or so. And here we are coming back to the book of Job for a study. And because one of the interesting things is about this is that as you age, and as you experience more of life, you find out that you find new information that becomes incredibly relevant to you. So, the book of Job. Let's begin. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless, upright, and he feared God, and he shunned evil. He had 7 sons, 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants. Basically, as it says succinctly, he was the greatest man among all the people of the East. All right, so let's just set that scene for us. Now, Job is written, it's probably the oldest written document we have in the Bible, although chronologically, I know Genesis is before it, but this, the account of the life of Job, if you look at it this way, Abraham is born 2166 BC, before Christ. Excuse me for not being politically correct. I know the thing we're supposed to do now say is before the Common Era, but live with it, okay? I'm not about to change now, okay? So, Isaac is born 2066 BC, and Abraham dies 1991 BC. So Job probably lived in the second millennium BC between 2000 and 1000, and his story is one of the most famous stories in all the Bible. I think for those of us who become Christians, so we get saved, we're born again, we've heard about this long before ever even taking spiritual questions or spirituality seriously. Studied it in high school. I don't think they're going to be studying the book of Job much in these liberal, crazy schools. You got the incredible monstrosity called the Democrats out there that are just now starting to wake up to how they blew everything. I'm not a big fan of Republicans either, by the way. My characterization of Fox News is the almost saved. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some legitimate Christians there, but, you know, get a whole lot of conservative ethics and la 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 la. It doesn't mean anything. God looks at the heart. So, I know I've had to get really political recently, and I don't regret it. I really don't regret it, because I've fine-tuned my senses. And I have to tell you that most of you out there in Christ, you don't have a clue as to what's going on out here. You really don't. And you don't have a clue as to what's going on in the church, the churches. You got guys like Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, although he's dead now. He dropped dead to his breakfast. I think he was surprised. They blame Job. Job is the reason all of this happened to Job. Can you imagine that? And these are still the top of the line ministries out there. Osteen, Kenneth Copeland, basically the health and wealth prosperity gospel. Now, there's nothing wrong with being prosperous. And all like that, that's fine. But if you think by some taking out scriptures out of context, you're going to claim your healings, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, which as many of these people in these movements have been, but they just move on. to other victims. They really don't care. You know, you look at a guy like Kenneth Copeland and say, money, come to me. Yeah, okay. Good, so fly around in your jets and all the rest of it. Hey, you know what? You may have a legitimate reason to fly and run your own airline. I don't even contest that. Believe me, I've flown many, many times out there. And believe me, it's not a very pretty picture a lot of times. So, you know, I get all that part of it. I really do. But when the promises go wrong, what happens? Well, see, if you look at any of these teachings in these movements, basically, Job was to blame for letting he had a bubble of protection around him. He was to blame for allowing Satan to penetrate that bubble. Of course, the Bible teaches no such thing. But don't confuse us with the facts. And I did 40 years of Christian radio, talk show, back and forth, 40 years. I paid my dues. And I'm amazed at, I just sit back now. Now, I gave you my political opinions recently, okay? That's enough. Okay? You want to believe what you believe politically? Go right ahead. I don't even care. You know, if you're my brother and sister in Christ, I don't really care. Just know what you're doing. Huh? Think. And then we come to the other side of the coin, into the realm of the theological world, where things that should be known are not known. Clear-cut biblical teachings have been, in some cases, literally reversed. So we have Job then, all the way back then, living back in that early time, where, and he was a good dad, you know? He was a very controlling dad. Listen, with all those sheeps and things, I mean, you must be a control freak. So he was wealthy. He was very wealthy. He named it and claimed it, and he did it. And then the story continues. One day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth. I've been going back and forth on it to see where I can screw things up for you, old man." Now, quick lesson Hebrew. God is called Satan hundreds of times. It just means adversary. So this being they call Lucifer, whatever, however that works out. But so basically, Satan has come to take the position of a prime adversary of God. But God himself, if you look it up in the Hebrew, is called a Satan to Satan. So an adversary. So that's all it means. That's for free. You got that for free. All right, so then he goes on to say, the Lord said to Satan, "Hey, have you considered my servant Job?" Oh, man. Head for the hills now. So Satan said, "Yeah, Job, I think I heard of this guy. Yeah, I think I heard of this guy." Another interesting thing, remember, Satan was roaming to and fro, meaning Satan cannot be to and fro at the same time. He's not omnipresent. He may travel a lot faster than we give him credit for, but he's certainly not omnipresent and doesn't have the... We give Satan so much power, it's ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, I think I heard about this guy. And so the Lord said to Satan, "Well, have you considered him? You know, I can't find anyone on the earth like him." Can you imagine God saying that about you? Can you imagine God saying that about you? I ain't even hoping for prayer. I'm not even raising my hand to you know, qualify. Forget that. "But have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless. He's upright. He's a man who fears God and shuns evil." So does Job fear God for nothing? Isn't there something in this for Job? I mean, come on. You got a hedge around him. We can't get through. We've tried many, many times. We can't even get through to his stinking kids. And, man, they're out there rocking and rolling and reeling and rolling and all that stuff. And we can't even get to them half the time. So, especially during these birthday bashes they have. So the Lord said, well, I tell you what. Everything he has is in your power now. So everything that the man owns is in your power now. But on the man himself, you don't lay a finger. Now, this is one of the interesting things, and the problem of suffering, is like some of us are going through now. It's part of the real world. It's going to happen. You can name it and claim it till your eyebrows fall off. And anyway, so it's just a part of aging. We're dying. We're disintegrating. That's just the way it goes. So basically, God says to Satan, who was saying something, he said, look, you put a hedge around him, his household, and everything he has. You've blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now, you stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Surely curse you to your face. All right, so the Lord said, very well then. Thanks, Lord. Thank you. Appreciate that one. Go ahead. Rip into him. You can't touch Job himself. You can't touch Job. But go ahead and do your thing. So it says here basically that Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day, now, this is the typical life of Job in those days. It must have been great to be Job's family, relatives, even his servants, I'm sure. I mean, he was the go-to guy. And it says, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, talk about bad news. Listen to this healthcare program. The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby. The Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put your servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Now, get this now. Let's keep going here. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. Sometimes it's good to have certain passports, Then it says, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed their raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one who's escaped to tell you this. And while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are all dead. I'm the only one who has escaped to tell you. Now you know why some of us don't answer our messages right away. Now you know why some of us don't get to the cell phones and the other things they got out there these days. And so it says, now imagine all that coming at you. All that coming at you. Never mind all your possessions are gone in one day. Your family's gone. They're dead. They're all dead now. The kids, they're gone. Says, at this Job got up and tore his robe, shaved his head, which was the custom in those days. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. But there's more to come. You know, like those commercials, the Ronco commercial, the rest. But there's more. There's more. If you order this now, you'll get this and this and this. So that's Job's first bad day. All at once, it comes upon him. All right, now let's just dip into chapter 2 a little bit. I don't want to make these studies too long. But, you know, you can always download them and just set it to pause, you know, when the attention span runs out or whatever. But let me just go into chapter 2 a bit. On another day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before him. And the Lord said, can you imagine this conversation really going on? And it does. It's happened. All right, what have you been doing? Satan, come here. You know, Lucifer, head lice, whatever you want, come over here. I'm roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. And the Lord said to Satan, well, have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless, upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. There was no reason. Now, we'll learn later on in the study about the character flaws of Job. And I think it's chapter 26 or chapter 27. The personal pronoun ego is used a tremendous amount of times, where we start to see the little crack in Job, like any man would. But we'll wait till we get that. We'll save that for later on. Okay. Like I said, but there's more to come. Skin for skin. You know, this is Satan. You know, skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life. But now you stretch out your hand, strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, very well then, he's in your hands, but you must spare his life. And that must be a terrible thing. In the book of Revelation, it talks about they will seek to die, and yet death will evade them. There's probably nothing worse than when you see people in this world suffering, and it's not for any reason other than they've been born in sin. Sometimes it's the outcome of a sinful lifestyle. Sometimes it got nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter. God is strangely silent on all these things, as we'll see, as the book concludes later on. So Satan went out in the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. That may seem like strange imagery to you, right? Did you ever get an itch? And don't tell people not to scratch, because they're going to scratch their raw. They'll scratch themselves raw. That's why we put these things on our dogs and cats. You know, the little things, because they can't scratch their ears, or they rip their ears apart. God doesn't give us that luxury. And I mean, I'm telling you, you just try to get an itch and not scratch it. Well, this guy had it from all over. And these sores were painful, but they would receive immediate pleasure from scratching, scraping. There is something psychologically about, kids who cut themselves and they're expressing something that's even worse than the pain they're feeling inside. So, it's almost a sideshow to get away from the real thing that's going on. Not cheap psychology, believe me. It's in there, and it works. It works amazingly. That's why we want to try to get people in this book studying the Word of God properly, and getting the lessons you need to learn from all this. There's no denominational drawbacks here. I don't care if you're Catholic, Protestant, whatever. you will find lessons if you're paying attention to the Word of God, and as time goes on in your life, because I think it was Larry Norman that did a song, if you don't think it's happening in America, just wait till it happens to you. And so some of us are at this stage now in our life. Look, I cannot say, I can't even compare myself with suffering children, cancer patients, and on and on and on. So that's my dog out there barking. So we're going to get back to our study in just a minute, in a little while. We're going to pick it up where Job has an interesting discussion with his missus. So we'll be back at the next Pilgrim's Passport.